more about what I was saying. The big business, you know, going over to another country, essentially. Yeah, like I was saying, I mean, it's gonna be America is gonna be the trusty dog, and then it's fine, the trusty choice. Whereas other places are underdogs because of the whole situation with a good leader being in there, and it comes to fruition. You basically have got to, try and stop barking. As far as like the other things too, like the people want to not be able to be Baker acted. They want to have control of whether or not they can put something on their license that says, I don't mind being Baker acted if I wasn't functional, or as long as it don't hurt anybody that can happen. They want to designate that. You know what I mean? They want to designate if like they should have open heart surgery. You know what I mean, on their license if they have to. They want to designate like where their limbs go, or like any parts of them go. So should be able to designate anything towards their health in that regard, and opt in to also be isolated or not isolated if they're ever incarcerated. Stuff like that. I personally love being isolated. I don't want to be around bad people or people really much in general, unless I enjoy their company. And it's safe, but they want control over their lives. So you give them that, and you make eggs go down, and you make it to where economy's going good, and you put syndromes as like something else to happen as far as their intersex thing, and you say that we're going to work with top people, doctors and stuff, who will put down all the syndromes that have ever been proven, and you can go through a list of those and mark yourself as one of those as an intersex designation that's separate from male and female, and you can put it down as that, or you can include it within a grouping of, if you have at least a Y, you will be in that group, or if you have no Ys, then you are in the other group. Is the way I would do it. And tell Trump I said this essentially, and all the other big dogs of the Republican Party, and people so that they understand what I'm saying. So I think that it's a good idea to have, like I said, either have at least a Y group, where you have like anybody who has at least a Y, or whether it's multiple Ys or one, and you have no Ys group, or you do intersex as a group, which that basically is what that is in regards kind of to I mean, it's like you're basically have you basically are designating with intersex. It basically intersex wise designating the syndromes and stuff that's not XX and XY. I definitely think that trans people, even though it's a mental illness and a condition similar to the intersex idea, they should be able to put on their license plate and passports and whatnot a stamp or some sort of thing that says that they're trans, can opt in for that, but it's not the stuff to go on essentially within the law on their license and passport. They can just be like a stamp, or so that you just do something like that to where the cop or whoever's investigating them knows how they want to be called, and you can choose to not call them that if you want, but it's not illegal. That's the way I think that should be handled, and it needs to be gotten with doctors of all different political ideas, and everybody gets together and actually proves the science on just all the syndromes and stuff, and real with scientific stuff in general too, like with the global warming thing. I think that it's been proven that it's been statistically over time getting colder, and that at times it does go out of whack, even if it's a few years, or even let's say 50 or 100 years. That's a small time frame in our human history, in our planet history. At some point it does go cold. Now it could be because that we've been lowering some population, doing some shit that is going colder, but it recently has been going colder winters, and they'll still say that it's still increasing around the world, yada yada yada. But that's what I'm trying to tell them, is that that's the markers of what it's going to do, is that it's going to swing at some point. And whether it's going down or not based on lower populations from what they've been doing with COVID and depopulating is irrelevant, kind of, because our planet has consistently shown us over a long period of time that it's been going colder. You can sit there and say that global warming for a small period of time as of recent history, after like the Industrial Revolution and some other stuff, that it's been getting worse. Okay, sure, because that is the Industrial Revolution and some other shit that has acquired more of those gases in the sky, right? And they're circling around, whatever. Okay, but gases are really expansive and moving molecules, and they're not gonna stay in one spot. And it also entails moisture and stuff being in the sky. Okay, that moisture is gonna freeze, and that air is going to freeze, and that stuff is going to provide for precipitation, and that coldness is gonna go into the ground and freeze over the earth somewhat, because it trickles into the ground. Even it makes the ground colder than it already is, and the ground usually dissipates heat. You ever step even in the desert, if you're not in direct sunlight, in sand that's real in direct sunlight, like if it's in the shade somewhat, it stays cool, because it's not that, if it's like, certain types of ground, it's going to be hot, but just regular dirt and stuff is cold usually, you know what I mean? It's colder, and especially with shades and stuff like that in play, it's going to be colder, and the ground will absorb coldness and spread it around. It basically stays colder and maintains its coldness, right? Instead of being in the atmosphere and moisture and stuff, where it's bouncing around and getting hotter because it's closer to the sun, and it's like out in the open. You see what I'm saying? So what I mean is that, like even if there's water molecules in the sky, whatever, and it's like in direct sunlight, that kind of thing, it's going to rain and travel around the earth, because gas will not stay in one spot. That's why there's hurricanes all over the damn place now. It's going to throw it out of whack, right? But in human history, as of late, right, even with our previous expansion into other new things, where it's gotten probably drastically warmer at times, which Joe Rogan proved that over time it's gotten drastically warmer, and this and that, and there's no way to really know, based on, we don't really have any documentation for every little thing, but we go based on what we know, and that's what they've told people. So I think that we're on a path of global cooling. So they're going to play on the fact that it's like lower population and people aren't having as many kids and stuff, and we've moved over to electricity, but we haven't moved over that much, and it's been drastically colder. And so that's what I'm trying to say, is I've already pretty much proved that it's essentially global cooling. Now you could say that it might just be a little bit weird, and it is basically because of slight differences of our electricity use and whatever, versus like fossil fuels and all this other stuff. But in reality, we haven't changed that much. We've only done more electric cars, more this and that, and the last like 5 years have been freezing. You know what I mean? It's been insanely cold. It's been like almost record number cold. So it wouldn't transition that way, right? If you did it basically proportion to proportion, percentage wise, it wouldn't change that much. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I think that they're full of shit. And the more that you show that even with this much change in how we have been conducting comparatively to the change in how the earth is cooling, it's showing that it's out of whack. So there would have to be some way to describe and some reasoning for that, to differentiate between what's actually happening. This is what I'm trying to say, is that the scientists, they don't like to thoroughly think sometimes. They like to throw out ideas, but they don't like to have actual answers to said ideas. And you can tell certain people, like all the good doctors, and he knows who I'm talking about in particular, but you can tell, everybody who's smart basically, and that have their own show on YouTube, as far as geniuses and stuff, that what I'm thinking, and he should understand what I'm thinking. It is true what I'm saying, that if you did the numbers right, it's been drastically colder and stuff. Now they'll say that, right, this is the kicker, they'll say that it's been really cold in those areas, right, and it could just be accumulation of cold because of what you're saying. Could be that it's traveling with gases everywhere and doing this based on patterns of the earth and whatnot, right? Well, if you look at those historic patterns, right, then if you're going to say that they run the same kind of patterns of air, which I don't think that they necessarily do so much, because it's not like water, where water has like currents and stuff like that. Well, I don't think the air is just quite the same. It might be somewhat, but it's air. It travels more. You know what I mean? It does different weird things. So I think that that's what they'll play on. But even then, if you base it on the way it looks, with the eye test and with actual even math in the way it's looking like a global cooling. And the more and more years that it shows that, the more and more they'll try to take credit for it, and that it's not been some sort of like global warming thing or whatever. I mean, they'll take credit for it, that it's not some sort of like depopulation thing and us moving towards electrics. They'll prove it. They'll try to prove it as that, but we're gonna have to say that it's not, and show them actual evidence that we haven't changed that much for it to be this cool. And so essentially, it will prove in the long run, with how drastically it cools, that they have been wrong. So give it 10 years, 20 years, we won't even have the electric grid up quite yet, with all the infrastructure, with Tesla chargers and shit even, and they'll still start singing that tune. But if it's 5 degrees colder than usual every year, then that's a problem, what they're saying. So you have to start slamming them in the face with all of that in regards to global warming, because they are in fact not correct. Like I said, the moisture is everything. Water on this planet changes the landscape a lot, and that's what our planet is specific to compared to other planets. We have water that goes into the sky, that travels into the ground, that literally has the whole surface of the earth extremely cold. Because think about it, whenever something is moist and wet, it's colder, it feels colder, whatever. It's the way water is. You will freeze more if you're wet than you are dry, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's the way it feels. It's like insanely colder, and your shit, it's like cold. I'm trying to think of the scientific name for that, but it goes into the earth though, and the earth will contain it until it tries to evaporate, or it travels and dissipates within the earth's ground. And if it doesn't evaporate everywhere, because that's where it would be warm if it's in the ground, right? But our earth is mostly cool, so it's going to stay in there in more spots than not, and it's going to essentially cold over and keep the cold temperature, and that cold temperature is going to take out the other warming temperatures, if it makes contact with warmer ground. And it's it's what I mean, it cools wherever it goes. So, and that's the way it happens, is that our earth is naturally cooler than it is warm. So yes, it might go up a little bit, but it won't go over that hump, is essentially what I'm saying, to where it is a mostly warm planet. You would have to push it into that, and we've already made significant changes, right? So they'll always say that, oh, we were on it to make sure that nothing happened. Well, the way you were trying to say it was that we were right on the cusp of something happening. It's only been I think it's like 1 point something degrees change, or even if it was 2 point something, it's like 1 or 2 degrees difference from NASA. And I looked it over, and that's from 100 years ago, with industrial complex stuff and revolution, type stuff going on. So, and it's been probably getting even warmer before that, a few hundred years. But the idea, though, that you are all basing it on a couple degrees in the most industrialized time in human history, basically, from industrial revolution till now, is absolutely asinine. And that is 100% political science, and it is just absolutely seeing water and looking at water and seeing a face, or like a Rorschach test, and showing the way you are through that. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally like you see fucking like caveman stuff, and you just try to put together, like I've said, and you try to say, oh, there's no way they took this animal because there's this and this reason, and it's their bias more to it because that's the way that they think or whatever, and they're kind of just like looking at themselves through their own evidential understandings of reality and physics and our history, whereas the logical, non-biased person, and just based on pure logic would understand that we still have even canine teeth, and we used to probably have sharper ones, and we also have problems with lectins in our gut and all this other stuff. Even historical vegetables that we've eaten have things that mess with us, and meat doesn't, and it feels better for us, and most of us go for the cheeseburger or the steak more. That's we have drives and taste buds for that more. That's like a more, you ask anybody what they would rather have, a salad or a nice big steak, or nice juicy chicken meal, or like a nice fish. You know what I'm saying? That's not even just like the way people think as far as society. That's like what our drives to eat are. And so we're primarily meat eaters, and so we probably were hunting the woolly mammoths, and we're doing those types of things, and we're hunting and using golden eagles to catch things, and riding horseback, versus we're hunting and gathering, and we're on our bare feet just barely scrounging around to live. You see what I'm saying? People still think that we're not even able to fight animals. We can absolutely fight an animal. Okay, anything your size, you can put that shit up. You are physically superior than a lot of animals. A lot. Stronger, more enduring, more game, more intelligent, right, to use different fighting techniques. And I've shown this. You can literally fight things your size and just choke them out or do something. People are like that. They can put up a fight against animals. And people wrestle dogs all the time. That's the most dangerous animal in the world as far as kill rates is a dog, a certain type of dog. Individual dogs that are really game and really insatiably voracious and enduring on a kill, they have the highest kill rates even among orcas. So like I said, even within the realm of animals, the African wild dog in the wild has the best ones of a wild species that's already like really established in the wild, and game dogs would be a better species that isn't established in the wild so much, but is in hunting scenarios is the number one, and could be the number one in the wild if it established itself. So that's just the way it is. I mean, I think that's like the way to go, essentially. In elaborating on the Democrats and the woke culture and the political science liberal mindset, they literally proliferate all the time with stupidity and their own egocentric ideologies about things, and people will sit there and say that like Terrence Howard and all these other people are dumb. Meanwhile, these people are saying really dumb stuff, but it's politically more correct, and they're not looked at as dumb. Even though Terrence Howard literally has a tangential flight drone, and Kanye West is over here making like the world's greatest fashion brand. Like they pick and choose their ways of battle, and it's to sound smarter than everybody else, but in reality it's not. And like I said, the data shows that it's actually been over an extremely long period of time globally cooling. So if you look at it in the realm of we've been already starting to globally cool, and this has been a little small fraction of time comparatively to the larger skewed data, okay, towards global cooling, that it's literally, and they'll sit there and literally argue with me all day that it's been globally warming for the longest. It's fine, and it's like, it's fine, and they'll sit there and try to say that like you don't have a degree in these science and these physics and stuff, right? And I'll sit there and say you don't have a degree in common ass sense, okay? And I've been in college since I was 16, and probably could have been in college since I was like 10, okay? I'm actually realistically, IQ wise, probably a high level genius. So like I said, is that I've been in baccalaureate programs or whatever it was, AP, that kind of stuff. Like I've taken, and this is all while playing 3 different sports and dating like runway model chicks in high school. Okay, like I even went to Auburn for like a week. I was like enrolled there and shit, and then I got accepted to FAU, other places I could have been if my grades were consistent from middle school. I could have been at Ivy League school. So I went to school in classes with your average, like there's people with the Cambridge like type of shit, Columbia, type of people, Duke, level schools, stuff like that, and Harvard and just stuff like that, to where like they're making a lot of money, and a lot of people are, they don't really understand things. They think that they do, but they're not really getting it. So I love to sit there and argue with certain types of people because they think they're so smart, but they're so dumb. They're really dumb, and they don't really make sense. And like I said, the people who are harassing me with the police and all this other stuff, who are messing up my dogs, doing bad shit to my dogs, and tuning me, despite me helping with certain things, and they're just still allowing stuff to happen to me and everything. They're basically like the worst types of people, because I'm literally like holding together all this stuff with the presidency, and helping it out and everything, and being like the spokesperson for the last over 6 months of helping out Trump, and they are throwing into my face, and they're trying to act like we're just testing you, or it's because of what you said, and it's like, what I said was because of what you've done to me, you know what I mean? So they don't like to take responsibility for anything, and they are just the way that they are. So yeah, just stay tuned, be helping out Trump some more.